Mazel tov Akiva, by the way. Mazel tov.
On?
Yes, so go
Oh,
ahead.
to Akiva, Mazel tov.
Making a mitzvah.
Okay. Where do I get back? Where I can see everyone in the tent?
So you just go, you can
Oh,
even
the
spotlight
Here we go. How long is that tent still going to be being used?
till Sunday, I think, since we
Oh,
had
it is. Okay.
we had
Baruch
this
Hashem.
year.
I am due for a visit. I haven't been in Toronto in a long time. I'm going to come to visit Kever Avos and the other stuff. All right, Mitzvah Hashem. It's starting to go away. Okay, let's. I guess we might as well begin. We don't have that long. So the Parshas Chukas. There's a pasuk in Parshas Chukas, a little bit after the beginning of the parsha. Maybe we'll begin with that, where the pasuk says, "Zois haTorah, Adam ki yomus ba'ohel, kol asher yovel el ohel chashav ba'ohel yitnu shivas yomim." This Gemara, I believe the Gemara is in Brachas, where the Gemara asks, "How do we know that ein divrei Torah miskaimin ela b'misha meimis atzmai aleihem?" Right? How do we know that the only person who is worthy of having the Torah sustained within him, that means even after he's learned it, we know because it says Zois Torah. This is the bottom line concerning Torah. It has to be Adam Kiyamus Ba'ohel. Now I did not plan the no pun intended.
As long as we stay alive here.
Right. But Ohel means, of course, the Ohel Shel Torah. Yaakov Ishtam, Yoshev Ohelim. I used to say to Talmidos many years ago that when it says about Sora Yimenu Hine Ba'ohel, that the pshat probably is that she constructed the edifice or the atmosphere, the venue in which Torah would have a kiyum, first of all for her grandson, but also future daughters. So how do we know the Torah can only be niskayim in a person whose name is Atzmoy? The pasuk says, "Adam ki yomus ba'ohel." The person, the suggestion is, needs to put himself to death, so to speak, ba'ohel, in the oil of Torah, and that is the eitzah by which the Torah is niskayim. So the shaila is, it's a belt shaila. I think the Chavetz Chaim asks the shaila as well. Here, we're learning about putting oneself to death for Torah. And elsewhere, the pasuk says, "As Parshas Zachrei Mois," that these are the it's a chukim mishpatim sheyasa oisam ha'odam v'chai bohem. So we know v'chai bohem, the drosha that the Gemara in Shabbos darshans v'chai bohem v'losh yomus bohem. That means to say that that's the makor, which teaches us that a person is allowed to be over averos, even to preserve his life, except for the three cardinal averos. But apart from those, the chaybem, you have to live to uphold the Torah, and that means yavar v'yal yehore. Also, we learned that it's even doiches Shabbos, that pikuach nefesh is doiches Shabbos because it says v'chai bohem. So that's the kasha. If the Torah says v'chai bohem, that means v'chai bohem means that the kiyum of Torah and the learning of Torah, the involvement with Torah, is such that is the source of chiyus, v'chai bohem, then how can the Torah be suggesting, according to the Gemara in Brachas, that the end of the Torah is kaimin elavamisha meimis atzmoi aleim? Either you're being meimis atzmoi or v'chai bohem. Seems to be a contradiction in terms. Interessant, derech agav, I think it was Kotzker Rebbe, the Chidushei Harim, that said v'chai bohem means v'chai bohem. That means when you do them, meaning the mitzvahs, when a person is oisik b'mitzvahs, he should not do it nonchalantly. He should not do it with a lack of enthusiasm or a lack of chiyus, but rather v'chai bohem. You should put all of your chiyus into it. And the other one of the two, whether it's Chidushei Harim, the two said different gedanken, but they're connected. The other one said v'chai bohem means you should know that life is only bohem. The people think that life comes from various different things, and we do pursue in our lifetimes, we do pursue various other goals, but we should know that v'chai is dafka bohem. So whatever pirush you want to learn on those words, but still the kasha of the Chavetz Chaim is still apparently a valid kasha. So I wanted to learn a different pshat b'chai bohem in understanding what chiyus really means. In order to do that, I think I would like to go back to the beginning of the parsha, where the parsha speaks about the mitzvah of paro aduma. Zois chukas ha-Torah, v'yichvo elecha paro aduma tmimo, etc. Shmuel, good evening.
Get some mazel tov.
On what?
You're a third Talmidim.
What?
His daughter became a kala.
Oh, wow, mazel tov.
Thank you. To Yossi Rubenov's son.
What's the name of the chassan?
Rubenov.
Shaul Rubenov. Shaul.
Yossi Rubenov's son.
So,
Oh, really? Baruch Hashem. Okay, so asach nachas.
Thank you.
Anyways, we're trying to understand what chiyus is in order to understand why it's not a contradiction to say on the one hand that a person's memis atzmai alehem, on the other hand v'chai bohem. Maybe in order to understand what v'chai bohem really means, what is the chiyus, we should understand what it means to be memis atzmai alehem. I mean, obviously, taken too literally, one is going to take a blood gemara and then hang himself. Shas ma'asav, so he'll be memis atzmai alehem, quite literally, which is of course ludicrous. So what does it mean? What?
It's yesterday's blood.
I didn't hear that.
It already happened.
What?
Yesterday's blood was so hard we could have hung ourselves.
Okay. At any rate, so the pshat is like this. Zois Chukas ha-Torah, and talks about the mitzvah of para aduma. So let's entertain the first Rashi and see how this is a difficult Rashi to understand. And Shlomi and Akiva might remember from way back that we may have learned this in Sfasemis. I think we did. But let's see the Rashi, and we'll see what the Sfasemis asks on the Rashi. The Rashi says like this: Lefisha hasoton v'umois ha'olam moinin es Yisrael. Because we are ridiculed. We're ridiculed by the Satan and umois ha'olam in whatever way we understand that concept of ridiculing. And they ask us the following: Ma havoida azos? What is this divine service? What are you doing? Ma tam yeshbo? What reason is there? And we know that that's the nature of a chayk. Before we proceed, by the way, we should understand what the Chazal say about there not being a tam for the mitzvah of paraduma. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, L'choni migale es tama. Excuse me, I will reveal the tam of paraduma to you. Ula'acherim chuka, for other people will remain a chayk. But obviously that means that there is a tam. We shouldn't think that it's an arbitrary act that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, what can we make them do in a weird way? Oh, let them take a red cow, burn it, and a zervite. That's ridiculous. So there is a tam. Even Shlomo Melech said, Amarti ech kama. I thought, I will be smart because Hashem granted me this wisdom. So smart that I could understand the tam of paraduma, but in the end, said Shlomo Melech, v'hira choykom imeni, continues to be distant from my ability to be masigit. So the Satan and the Umas Oilam attack us, so to speak, and they say, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're doing a mitzvah you don't understand. What's the answer that we give? Which kuti is that?
That's my brother.
Matteo.
Yeah.
How you doing? Shalom Aleichem. I can hear you. Yeah. Good to hear your voice. I saw you not that long ago. We saw each other recently at a chasana or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Reuben. Yeah. Rubenfeld chasana.
The Rubenfeld chasana, right? Okay. Bingo, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the train of thought. So the Satan and the Umas Oilam are criticizing us for doing a mitzvah that we don't understand. So what's our response to the Satan, to the Umas Oilam? No, this is a gzeira. We have no permission to ponder it. It's a gzeira, it's a decree. We don't understand it. So the Sfasemis asks, if I can paraphrase, this is rather strange shaklavataria. I mean, what's the answer? We're being attacked for doing a mitzvah. We're being ridiculed for doing a mitzvah. What are you doing this mitzvah for? You don't understand it. And our response is, it's because we don't understand it. Well, duh. That's exactly what the ridiculing is all about. That's what that's what the Satan and the Umas Ohel are being moine at us, that they are scoffing at us for doing that very thing. So what's the shakla b'tarya? So to understand, the pshat is like this. And I'll elaborate a little bit on the concept of humanism. Humanism is a philosophy which is not a recent one. The name is relatively recent, maybe a couple of centuries old, but it started with Nimrod, Amraphel, when he decided he's going to build a Migdal Bavel. And the Migdal Bavel was because he wanted to rise up to the Elyonim and do battle, Kiviyachel, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we know what happened, the Dora Plug. But what's the Hechatimtza? What is the thought which formed the premise for Nimrod's Havimina? The thought is that the human being is almost or even completely on the same level as that which is divine, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the philosophy of humanism is that the human being is the source of all that is great, all that is powerful, all that is grand, and all that is supremely intelligent. Humanism, especially secular humanism, has been a force for many centuries. And we're living now certainly at a time where humanism has gone completely haywire. We won't go into all the protein, there's no time for that, but you know what I'm talking about. I'll go upon him. So the question that the Satan and the Umas Ohel are asking us is basically founded or steeped in the philosophy of humanism. They're asking us like this: if you don't understand the depth of an action, then how could you possibly do that action? And our answer to the Satan and Umas Ohel is, your premise is mistaken. You have a humanistic premise, and we hear there is such a thing as humanism, but humanism is false. In the same way that Nimrod was wrong. There is deism. There is belief in a Kudsha Brichu, there's belief in a supreme being. And like the Ramban says on the Indian of Mitzvah Egla Rufa, he says, Umachshavois Hashem Omku. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's wisdom is infinite compared to ours. We have great wisdom, but it's restricted, it's limited in comparison with the Rabbi Shalom's wisdom. So Satan and Umas Ohel, you think that the only time a person should be committed to an act of devotion is when he understands the amkus of it? No, that's not our premise. Our premise is that, well, this is basically Nasav and Ishma. Our premise is that we express our commitment to the Rabbi Shalom, but there's more, and then we will hear the details. But, you know, the Vanishma part doesn't make sense either, if you think about it. So I want to clarify, again, based on the Sosemis. With the Pasuk in Tehillim, Kapitel Samach something, or rather, I don't remember, maybe Samach Gimel, Gedenknish. The Pasuk says, Baruch Hashem Alochav, Giborei Koyach, Oisei Devoroi, Lishmoya V'Koil Devoroi. Blessed you be the Malachim, referring to human beings. In one place, Chazal says, it's a Medrash of Vayikra, says, B'Shem Shviyas, HaKosam Medaber, next year Shemitah, is talking about Shem Shviyas. But the kids are Malachim, are those who are strong of will, strong of spirit. Oisei Devoroi, Lishmoya V'Koil Devoroi. So of course the shaila is, what's the difference between Oisei Devoroi and the Shmoya B'Koil Devoroi? And the answer is, this is the process. It's a dialectical process where we come ultimately to a Havana, but it's a Havana which is higher than an intellectual kind of Havana. In other words, like this. We do the mitzvahs of Hashem often because we think we understand them, such as the Eduyos and such as the Mishpatim. But ultimately, morality and moral thinking is a function of secularism, it's a function of humanism, and we transcend that. Even when we do moral things, moral precepts, it's because we are connecting ourselves to the Rabbi Shalom. Ein oid milvado, even for morality. And the way we get into shape, so to speak, for having that kind of a mindset, is when we are oisei devoroi, when we do things, and like the Sosema says, dafka with a lack of understanding. And the result of that is we come to the second phase, and that is lishmoya l'koil dvarei. Because there's a different level of understanding which is not reducible to the principles of logic, not reducible to the principles of mathematics. As a matter of fact, there's a famous paradox which proves, a mathematical paradox, that you can't really walk from one side of a room to the other. I don't have time to do that right now, unless I do. In the end, maybe it's cute, it's kedai to know. But nevertheless, we embrace the idea of there being human limitations, of that the human being is limited in his scope and his ability to grasp things. Because you are oisei devarei, but the result of that is you come to the madrega of lishmoya, to the heron, to hear b'koil devarei, to understand what it's all about. Our understanding is not contingent upon the functions of reason. Our understanding is contingent, the ultimate understanding is contingent upon our connection with the Rabbi Shalom. In fact, Hashadosis Lahachi, we might as well, I'll share with you a thought from the Goin. The Goin was Chassidish, no, there's Chassidish insights. It says a Chassid Rebelio on his Matseva. The only thing is that I saw this in the Avi Ezri, which is in Shach.
It has to be emes.
What?
If it's on the matzeva, it has to be emes.
Right, okay. Anyways, the Shaila is that there's a stira in the Rambam. The Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvahs says that there's a mitzvah, lahamin, sheyesh mamtzi kol ha'nimtzoim, right? The mitzvah of emunah. It's the first mitzvah in the Torah, to be mamin that there is an unmoved mover, the one who created all. In the beginning of Hilchos Yisrael HaTorah, where the Rambam speaks about that very same first mitzvah, the first mitzvah in the Torah, rather than say the word lahamin, he uses the word leda. So the shaila is not a stira. Belief and knowledge are similar, but they're not the same. You can believe anything, ultimately. You can believe that 2 + 2 = 5. Of course, you either need a mental health specialist, or you're just a lousy mathematician, but you can believe it. It is valid when I say, I believe that 2 + 2 is 5. That could be true. I may be mishiga, but that could be true. But I cannot say, I know that 2 + 2 = 5, because that's not verifiable. Forget, the opposite is verifiable. So there's a difference in emunah and yediyah. And don't say that the Rambam is talking about two different mitzvahs, one in the Sefer Mitzvahs and one in Hilchos Yisrael Torah and the Yad HaChazaka, because that is not the case. The very same mitzvah is referred to as yediyah and emunah. So that was a stira. In fact, Reb Chaim Volozhin asked this kasha to the Goy, and the Goy's territory is like this, that there's actually two kinds of emunah. One kind of emunah is what we might call in English blind faith, faith which doesn't necessarily have any depth to it. And then there's yediyah on top of that. But on top of that yediyah, there's a second level, a higher level of emunah. And you might say that it's similar to like vahi oimen is hadasa, and oimen it means a nursemaid. So it means like a connection. The same way that an infant is connected to a nursemaid or to its mother. In the same way, we shaf in ourselves that level, that bechina of emunah, where we are connected to the Rabbeinu Shalom. That connection is referred to as emunah. So the Rambam is saying the ultimate, as in the Sefer HaMitzvahs, is lahamin. To have that madrega of emunah, not blind faith, but to have that. But how do you get there? So you get there through yediyah. Yediyah, so the Rambam says, or Tzaddik brings it down commonly in the different ksavim, is through the mid of his beinunus. His beinunus means you try to gain some depth and understanding what the Rebbeinu Shalom is all about. But ultimately, whatever you accomplish in that derech brings you to an emunah, your ability to sense HaKadosh Baruch Hu almost intuitively. So the pshat is like this. The Satan and Umas Ha'olam are saying to us, listen, anything that a person is committed to has to be something that he understands. That's the premise of the Satan. That's the premise of the Umas Ha'olam. And we say to them, wrong. There is a higher level, and that is when we have a connection to the Rebbeinu which surpasses Yediyah. You guys are sticks in the mud because you're restricting yourself to only that which your feeble, relatively feeble human mind can grasp and conjure up. We're on a higher level. Taka, we use Bina, we use Das, and Chochmah. Akiva, you heard that, right? We use all of those meters in order to achieve finally that is kashrus to the Rabbi Shalom. But that's a higher level. So you Satan and you don't chap what this is all about. So Mela, the Sfasema says this is the pshat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us dafka to do the mitzvah of paraduma because this puts us into practice of being mekabel the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and doing mitzvahs ach v'rak because that's the Ratzon of Hashem and not because it sits well with us. So you might say the Klal Yisrael is not a moral people. We're certainly not immoral, usually. But what we are is amoral. The concept of morality being a humanity or a humanism-based concept is suddenly divorced from our sphere of experience. We are Lamaila. So Maila, the pasuk says, Zois HaTorah Adam ki yomus ba'Ohel. And the Gemara learned out in Brachos, the term is Kaimin. The ultimate grasp on Torah can only be b'misham meimis atzmoi aleim. Somebody who puts to death that principle of the human condition, that's the atzmoi here, the me, the ego. Somebody who's meimis atzmoi, somebody who can put to death that mahalach, that mindset, which says that everything can only be totally on my ability to understand things, and beyond that ability, beyond all the trigonometry and calculus, nothing else makes sense and nothing else exists. You have to be meimis that. You have to be meimis that as choshev as those sciences and those maths are, and they are. But beyond that, there's a realm of understanding which goes beyond that. And Mela, that's the Indian of Tam also. Tam is experiential. Tam is taste. It also means reason. Reason is rationale, but also means taste, which is experiential. So that element of Tam, which supersedes the rationale, which supersedes Yediyah, that's where we're headed. And that's the pshat of being Meimis Atzmai Aleim. That's the pshat in V'chai B'hem. There's no steer between Odom Meimis Atzmai Aleim and between V'chai B'hem, because the ultimate chiyus that we have is taka that. If a person is Meimis Atzmai Aleim, dafka through that conduit, he comes to the destination, comes to the objective of V'chai B'hem. That's real chiyus. My real chiyus is vani kirvas alikim litoiv. My shleimus is kirvas alikim, and that's the higher level of emunah. So if, as much as we're supposed to use our chokhmah and our bina and our das, we're supposed to every morning we say a bracha. So about it, we're celebrating our own. We say bracha. These are tremendous gifts, and we have them, and they were given to us to use. But at the same time, by recognizing what the limitations of those matanas are, we are zoichet perhaps to come to the nishma, and that's the predicate of nasa. Nasa is we throw ourselves into Torah with commitment. Which is the you do it because it's the Ratzon of Hashem. A person connects with the Ratzon of Hashem, and that opens up vistas and a whole new scope of reality for him, which is called nishma or lishmoya b'kol dvara, as in the pasuk in Tehillim. Mamela, nothing is a stira, and maybe we understand the dialogue between the Satan and the between Klal Yisrael, that each one is coming from a different position, and everything seems to make sense now, according to the Sfasemis. And so I always say, all you need is a little bit of Sfasemis, and the coast is clear. Moshe, by the way, good evening. Moshe, where are you? Are you there somewhere? I thought I saw you before. Hi. Still owe me a visit, Moshe.
So who else here? Mayor Tannenbaum is here.
Oh, Mayor. Hi, Mayor.
How you doing?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yoni Menzelewski is hiding in the corner.
Hi, John.
And
Wow. It's good to see everyone. It really is. It really, really is. I'm not saying that. It's good to see everyone. It's really good.
It's happy to see each other too. We haven't seen each other really in a year and a half. Everyone's been covered with a mask.
Okay. But you saw, from the neck down, you saw each other. And I don't mean in the mikveh, by the way. I mean,
It's only on Zoom.
only on Zoom. All right, so this is a happy occasion, and we should have only many more. Sure. Any questions or objections or requirements for clarification? Happy to do that. Otherwise, I think that's basically it for now. Anyone? Shmuel?
I have a side question. No, I was in your class 40 years ago. I walked into your English class in New Yisrael after being in Extended Torah for a whole bunch of years.
Right.
A lot. I learned a lot.
Yeah, there's another voice coming through at the same time. So I don't know. You have to maybe speak louder, Shmuel, or
I have a question. Is the word? I have girls. I have the one boy too. Is the word share or shear? I'd like to know where the word share comes from.
if you're a girl in Camp Aguda, it's share.
Okay.
Or if you're a girl in any other camp, it's share. The only thing I know about share is it's a nice thing to do if you have a piece of cake. You can share. Otherwise, the word is shear.
Okay, word is shear. Okay, good.
Look in the Mishnah, Elu Dvarim She'en Lohem,
Is it
shear.
So
Right? That's the word.
or just the total amaratzim that they have to take the girls.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to call Amaratzim who say that, but as far as that particular word is concerned, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
I just wonder. I'll sleep better than
Avigdor had a question. I also have a question. Avigdor, you had a question?
Doesn't the Rambam try to push us to have a understanding of the mitzvah?
Yes, that's what I said. The Rambam, and that's why when I mentioned also Reb Tzadok says this over and over again. His Bainus. The Rambam says, as a matter of fact, there's many passages in the Rambam, different places, trying to be masbir all the mitzvahs, including such mitzvahs as they seem they can't be understood, like Shiluach HaKain, where the Mishnah says, the Rambam says, no. That the Mishnah holds like one sheet. I hold from a different sheet that there is a way to be masbir the mitzvahs. And he's masbir shatnez, and he's masbir why shchito min hatzavar is better than shchito min ha'orev. Whereas Chazal say often in the Medrash, ma ichbas leila kodesh baruch hu bein shchita batzav shchita min ha'orev. What's the difference between kodesh baruch hu? Where you kill an animal, you slaughter an animal from the neck or from the throat. So the Rambam gives an explanation. So yes, you're right, but that's in the level of Yediyah. But I have no suffix that the Rambam himself would have held that there's higher than that. Why do I have no suffix? Not because I'm smug, which I am, but it's not because of that. It's because the Rambam says himself in the Meir, it says in the Meir Nevuchim, he says, "V'onu b'nei Avram Avinu v'talmidei Moshe Rabbeinu ein onu tzrichim lezeh." He's going through the Aristotelian proofs, the cosmological proofs for the existence of God and other inyanim. Even though, of course, he believed in Aristotle, calling him Korev Lanavi, but he says we have a Messiah. We Yidden don't need, because we're b'nei Avram Avinu, and we're the children, we're the Talmid of Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't need the proofs because our connection with Kodesh Baruch Hu supersedes that which is natural, right? Or that which is rational. That's what's rational. But at the same time, the Rambam says that middle level called Yediyah, like it says in the Yad, in the first mitzvah, mitzvah leda. You got to get out the old head and use it. So yes, to the extent that you can understand any and all mitzvahs, be my guest. You should do that.
So is the goal to remain on that level all the time? And don't tell me I got to maximize the idea, or is the goal to maximize the idea and then go beyond? To remain.
The goal is beyond, but that's not a goal that you can pursue other than by doing Yediyah. But by the course of Yediyah, you will come. This is the Rambam Shita. You will come to be miskar to the Rebbe through that exercise, and that will b'meila put you in a position of emunah. You might look at it this way. The Gemara says, tamin, right? What's the connection between the Yigiyah and the Metzia? So the Poshup shot is, I'm Misyageya, right? The result of my Yigiyah is that I now have the Metzia, I understand the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Kodesh Rebbe said it doesn't make sense because a Metzia, we know halacha, a Metzia is only Nikneh Behesach Hadas, which means you don't plan that, which means there can't be a direct correlation between my Yigiyah and between the Metzia that I get. So he says that's Tafka the Pshat. The Yigiyah is a precondition. That's your avodah. You got to stick to your Yigiyah. The Metzia will come Behesach Hadas. That's the higher Madrega that is almost given to us with Matana. That's almost a Matana. The way to achieve that higher level of Amunah, according to the Rambam, certainly, is by being Misyageya in Torah. And then the Amunah comes. The Asiyah, when we say Nasav and Ishma, doesn't only mean we will do the Sukkah, we will do the eating matzah on Pesach, but it means the Asiyah means all of Torah, our involvement with Torah, like Lasok B'divrei Torah. Our involvement with Torah, that is the first step. We have to live a life where we are killing ourselves to understand the Tosfos, killing ourselves to understand the Pshat Mitzvahs if we can, but understanding that the ultimate level of connection with the Rabbi Shalom, the Kirvas Elikim, comes b'matana as a Metzia after the Yigiyah. After that, that's the highest level. So mainly you're memisatzmo in the sense that you're investing all of your koiches, but also you're understanding that like the Rav Nachman says, the tachlis of the Yediyah is to know that we can't know everything. Tachlis Yediyah sheneda shelo yodim, etc. So the result is after that you have the Lishmoy B'Kol Dvara, you have the Nishma, and you have the real V'chai B'Him.
I said one other question. Maybe you mentioned, what's the difference between the Sutton and Umas Ohel and Yetzer Hara? Because Rashi brings all three in different places, so they're not really the same kindness. I mean, this one, I think Umas Ohel is Chukas, and the Shatnez, I think it says it's the Yetzer Hara.
So I didn't think about that, but let's think sort of off the cuff. The word Satan in Tanakh means an adversary. That's the title of the word. Like the Melech of Aram, Ben Hadad was a Satan to the Melech of Yehuda. So the Satan means an adversary. So the Satan in this Rashi that we spoke with doesn't necessarily have to mean that force, that sort of demonic, intangible force called the Satan. It could be just anyone who is an adversary to the position of Klal Yisrael. That could be one shot in the word Satan. And Umas Olam obviously are adversaries to Klal Yisrael for those reasons. The word Satan also refers to the Yetzer Hara, like you suggested. What does the Gemara say? Hasatan chuzmene shi and samach daled. That the word Hasatan is begematria 364. It's a Gemara in Yuma to say that there's one day a year where and that's Yom Kippur. There's one day a year where the Satan has no koiches, and that's the Yom Kippur. One day a year, because Hasatan is begematria 364. So therefore, there is some sort of a label connecting the word Satan to the Yetzer Hara. And could be Satan is, I don't know, I don't want to get too comic booky, but there is the Satan, the Malach HaMaves, all of the negative forces which exist in some sort of an elevated world beyond our own might be referred to as a Satan as well. But I think that Legabi, the Rashi that we discussed today, there's not too much of an afkamina. It ain't our buddy, let's put it that way. Whatever the Satan, whoever the Satan it is, it ain't somebody you want to be Mashalach yourself with. All righty? Have a good night, everyone. And a good Shabbos. Take care, Moshe. Bye-bye.
Shabbos.
Okay.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, good to see you. The tent is up and running.
I know. I'm waiting for my ride.
Okay. These are on time. Make sure you're there
Let's go.
early.
Here, you want to go? Let's go. Here, I'll take you now. Come on. Get in. Let's go.
That's all right.
Make sure to put clean sheets and a soap on my pillow.
Clean sheets. We have clean sheets. Absolutely.
All right. I'll see you tomorrow, Avi. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm off now until midnight, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay, it's all good. If you're delayed or anything, you just send me a WhatsApp, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. See ya.
Where are you, David?
Akiva.
He's over here. He ain't doing little. We can't see you.
Yeah, you can't see me?
No, you gotta put the
Oh,
dome.
slimy. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me turn on the light.
Put the dome light on.
Where are
Behind you. Put the dome light. There you go. All right. How was the shear?
Great angle. Which shear? Hi, Diddy.
Apparently you went to a shear, I was told.
I went to shear?
Yeah.
Who told you I went to shear?
You went to a shear.
A shear, yeah. I got my hair sheared. See, I got my hair sheared.
You just got it.
Oh, what the heck?
What's going on, guys?
You're there? Just watch where you're driving.
Yeah. We're not going anywhere.
Where did you go? Nothing. Nice to see you.
Yo,
What? You go swimming yet?
We're going swimming now. You coming?
Sure.
Is the weather nice here? It's gorgeous.
Yeah, weather's gorgeous here.
Good.
Oh, Hashem.
All right, guys, nice to see you. Can you get a kiva? He wants to say Mazel Tov.
Right here. He's right here.
What's that?
You're driving through the night?
No, they're going tomorrow.
Oh, Menachem.
Atla.
Oh, how you doing? Come pick me up.
Atla doing?
Pick me up. Bring the feathers.
Where are you? Woodburn?
Where the feathers?
Good to see
He
you.
remembers everything, this guy, huh? He remembers everything. Got a memory.
I gotta stop
Very
the
nice.
recording, guys.
Mazel tov, Akiva.
Thank you.
Only simchas.
Amen.